Hello there. Do you have a business analyst interview coming up shortly? If so, this is one of the videos for you. This is one of the videos in the Business Analyst Interview Questions and Answers series. I've provided the link to all those videos in the description, so please go ahead and check it out. In this video, you're going to look at the top 9 commonly asked interview questions on testing. You may be wondering, testing and business analysts? Yes, I agree with you. Testing is not one of the responsibilities of a business analyst. But in the recent past, what has been seen is that the business analysts are asked to take up additional role in management and coordination of testing, especially the UAT testing. So the interviewer might be interested to understand your exposure to the concepts of testing and also your experience. And we are going to cover those questions in this particular video, so stay tuned. In this video, you're going to look at a variety of topics from business analyst role in testing, creation of test plan, RTM, test scenarios and test case creation, and also the different testing tools used. And also, we're going to look at all these questions from a view of a business analyst. So this is a really a different view than all the other videos which we have on testing, interview, and questions. And this talks in specific and in relation to a business analyst. And also, if you have not already subscribed to our channel, I would request you to please go ahead and subscribe to our Prefect BA YouTube channel so that you're notified when we come up with the next video. We have a lot of cover, so let's get started. To make it easier for grasping the concepts in the answers, we're going to use a case study. In this case study, a movie theater chain called XYZ Cinemas is looking to build a digital channel for allowing the customers to book their movie tickets online rather than calling up the customer care or standing in the long queues and getting their tickets at the ticket counter. So we are going to use this example case study for answering all the questions. Question number one, what is the role of a business analyst during testing phase? This is a short question, and 90% of the time this question would be asked in the interview. So there are two major testing phases. One will be the SIT, system integration testing. The other one will be the UAT, user acceptance testing. So we're going to look at the roles and responsibilities of a business analyst during these two key testing phases. So let's start with SIT. So the first key responsibility of a business analyst would be the walkthrough of the requirements to the testers. So the business analyst will explain what the requirement is, answer any questions from the testers so they understand what is being required and what is being developed. And then the testers will go back and come back with the test scenarios and test cases, and that is the second task for a business analyst, to review them and ensure that they have got the scenarios and the test cases right for all the requirements, which leads us to the third point, which is checking requirements traceability. We're going to talk about more on this in the subsequent slide when we talk about the requirements traceability metrics, but here just to this step is done to ensure that all the requirements are having a subsequent test scenario or a test case. And then the other key part or key role is when the test execution happens, once a defect has been logged by the testing team, it is assigned to the business analyst first to ensure that the defect is valid before it gets assigned to the development team. If it is an invalid defect, like invalid scenario, or the testers might not have understood it correctly, then it can be rejected by the business analyst then and there, so that the time of the development team is not wasted. So it's like a defect triage. It's done by the business analyst. The last key thing is articulating business impact and assisting in defect prioritization. Let's say if there are like 10 defects and there'll be a question asked, what is the priority of the defects? Because we might not be in a position to fix everything by the development team. Then it becomes the responsibility of a business analyst to get the business impact for all those defects and then assign the priority 1, 2, 3, so that it makes it easier for the development team to get it done. And if there are further defects, it can be pushed over to the next release, which are not very critical or high. So that's on the SIT. Coming to the UAT, I think most of the things what we discussed holds good for UAT as well. The walkthroughs, the reviews, traceability, validity of the defects, and articulating business impact. Along with that, this is where there will be additional things asked by a business analyst. That is, here, creation of the test scenarios and test cases. So as you know, the UAT is done by the business users, and they are not very equipped with testing concepts, or testing, or they might not have the time because they're doing UAT in addition to their day job. So there will be requests raised for the business analyst to create the test scenarios and test cases. So this is where your knowledge of scenarios and test cases will come in handy. And the other one would be test management and reporting. Again, due to the lack of bandwidth by the business users, so the management, like the test planning, creation of schedule, strategy, environment setup, all of those things would come as a responsibility of a business analyst, and also the daily reporting and ensuring the high priority defects are being resolved. So all those management is being asked to be done by the business analyst. Ideally, these were a traditional role of a test manager, but nowadays the trend has been the business analysts are being asked to pitch in. So having knowledge of these will give you an edge over the other candidates in the interview process. Question number 2. What is functional and regression testing? I know there are a lot of different types of testing: sanity testing, load testing, performance testing, etc., etc. But with respect to business analysts, these are the key or two key types of testing, which is functional and regression. So let's look at them quickly. First one is functional testing. This refers to testing of functionalities developed as part of that current release. So these are the new functionalities which are delivered, and testing of those functionalities is referred to as functional testing. Regression testing. So this refers to testing of the existing functionalities, and to ensure that they still work fine post addition of these new functionalities to the application. So this is usually done at the end of the test cycle. Let's try to look at these with an example. So again, the example refers to our case study, and the new release delivers the online payment functionality to the customers. So prior to this release, customers were using the application to book movie tickets. Post booking the tickets, they would used to get a confirmation, and then they used to give the confirmation to the ticket counter and make the payment either using cash, debit card, or pay mobile wallets at the ticket counter. Suppose this release, the customers can make online payments through the application itself, so they don't have to take the confirmation, go to the ticket counter, and all of those things. So it's much more simplified and a better customer experience, right? So let's look at what is functional and regression testing in this example. Functional testing. So this refers to the online payment functionality which is being deployed as part of the current release. So it's a new functionality. So testing of that is known as functional testing. Regression testing. So testing of the functionalities which were already existing, which is like registering, login, seat selection for the movies. So all of these are existing functionalities, and they still need to work post the deployment of the online payment functionality. So testing of those existing functionality is referred to as regression testing. So these are the key two types of testing, and which would be asked by the interviewer. Question number 3. What are the different levels of testing? This is one of the questions asked to gauge your knowledge of different types of testing across the software development lifecycle. Let's look at it. I've summarized it in this particular diagram. So the first level of testing is called the unit testing, and it is done by the developers. So once they've written the code, they check if everything works fine as per the requirement. The second level of testing is called SIT, or system integration testing. So once the unit testing is successful, it's deployed to the SIT region and SIT environment, and then the testers would be performing the system integration testing just to ensure the connectivity works, and all the test cases and test scenarios which are written against the requirement works well. And the third level of testing is called UAT, or user acceptance testing. So this is done by the business users. So these are the end users of the application which is being developed, and these are the users who would have provided the requirements in the first place. So they will be doing it, or there'll be a representative from the business team who will be doing it on their behalf. So they'll be checking whether the application developed satisfies their requirements. And once everything is successful, then the the code moves to the production environment. So the go live or the deployment to production usually happens on a weekend. And once the code is deployed to production, there will be a couple of people from the business team, the end users, will be checking whether the code works fine in the live environment. So there's no hiccups, there's no, at least the basic critical test cases would be executed by them to ensure everything works fine. So this type of testing is called live testing. There are different names to it, but the concept remains the same. So these are the different levels of testing. Hope it helps on understanding the concepts involved there. Question number 4. What is a test scenario? A test scenario refers to a particular functionality which needs to be tested. As simple as that. So test scenarios can be created using use cases if your project is using waterfall methodology, or acceptance criteria if your project is using agile methodology. So if the business asks you, can you create test scenarios? There's no need to panic. All you have to do is translate the use cases slash acceptance criteria to test scenarios. As simple as that. Let's look at a couple of examples to give a wider context. So again, these examples are taken from our case study. So test scenario number 1, check the search functionality for the movies. So this scenario basically talks about where the customer can enter a keyword and the appropriate movie appears in the listing. Test scenario number 2, check the availability of seats for a particular movie. So this is where the customer logs in, selects the movie, the timings, and then goes to a screen where it shows which seats are available or which seats are not for selection. So the seats which are available may be in white, and the seats which are not available can be grayed out. Test scenario number 3, check for the online payment functionality. So this is a functionality where the customers can pay using credit card, debit card, PayPal, or any mobile wallets. So if you see, all these scenarios, test scenarios, are basically either use cases or acceptance criteria. So if a need arises for you to create a test scenario, it's as simple as translating the use cases or acceptance criteria. Question number 5. What is a test case, or the components of test case? So this question is another commonly asked one. So test case is defined as a series of actions executed to verify a particular functionality. So basically this is an extension of the test scenario. So these are the steps taken by the tester to verify whether the test scenario is as per the expectation. So let's look at it using an example. So if you look at the test scenario, which was check the availability of seats for a particular movie, let's see how a test case for it looks like. So there will be a test case name, so can be test the seat availability display, and then this table and the columns are pretty key here. So it has the step number, description, expected result, actual result, pass, fail, defect ID. So this answers what are the components of a test case if asked. Uh, the these are the key information, key columns. There can be additional columns used by the SIT testers, but again, if it's from a UAT perspective and you're preparing a test case, this is more than sufficient. So let's look at the example. So step number 1 and the description. So the description is like enter the XYZ Cinema URL. What is the expected result? The XYZ Cinema's website should open in a browser. And step number 2, search for a movie. Expected result is the search movie should appear with an image and the name. Step number 3, click on the movie name or image. Once it is clicked, the expected result will be the timing should be displayed. And then the last step is to click on the particular time, and here is where the key key expected result is, which is the seating arrangement should be displayed with the available seats in white and the reserved seats or the book seats already grayed out. So this is the expected result. So you're doing all the steps involved to come to step number 4 to check whether the available seats are shown in white, yeah, and can be clicked. So this is how a test case looks like, or these are the components of test case. So this can be used to answer the question if asked in the interview. And if the business asks you to prepare a test case, you can use the same template to prepare one for the business. In the next slide, we are going to look at the test execution and how the remaining columns are filled. So let's look at it in the next slide. Previous slide, if a question is asked, what happens in the execution? So you can use this explanation as a reference. Let's say a business user is executing this particular test case as part of the UAT. The actual result, pass, fail, and defect ID, the last 3 columns should be updated as part of the execution. So if you go by this, so the first step was to enter the URL for the XYZ cinemas. The website should open, which it did. And then the second step was to search for a movie. The actual result was, once it was searched, the movie with the image was displayed, the relevant movie which the customer was, which the tester was searching for. And then once the movie was clicked, the timing should have been displayed, which was displayed in this execution cycle. So once these steps are successful, which is the actual result is as per the expected result, then the pass fail column should be updated with pass pass pass, indicating that these steps were successful. Let's look at the last step, where once the particular time is clicked, the seats, available seats, should be shown in white. But what was observed was all the seats were grayed out, even the available seats, so which is a fail. So this particular step was not successful. So when this happens, the tester needs to indicate it by fail, by updating the pass fail column as fail, and then a defect has to be raised. So a tool which is used for defect management, Jira, QC, whatever is used in the particular project, a defect has to be raised. The defect usually contains what is the defect, what is the problem, expected actual results, what are the steps taken. All of this information is already available. It can be taken here and copy pasted there, and also accompanying screenshots. So this will help for further investigation of the defect. We're going to look at the defect life cycle in the next question, but just wanted to give you a view of what all the key components of raising a defect. So this is what happens in the execution. So if there's any question asked, so this explanation can be used to answer it. Question number 6, explain the defect life cycle. So this is one of the most commonly asked question in the interviews on testing. So let's look at it. So it all starts with a defect being raised by the testing team. It can be SIT or it can be UAT, the business user. The life cycle remains the same. So the defect is raised. I've indicated the status of the defect by the highlighted yellow box. The status of the defect will be new. And before going to the next step, it's very crucial and critical that these components are present in the defect, which is the description of the defect, what exactly is the problem, and what was the expected result, what is the actual results, and what was the steps taken to execute this particular test case, and then the screenshots, the relevant screenshot. So this will really help the analysis of the defect to be very faster. So once the defect is raised, it's usually assigned to the business analyst. So it's your job to first check whether all of these components are available. If not, first and foremost, you have to inform the testers to add all these components. So it comes to the business analyst. The business analyst first checks whether it's valid or not, whether it is as per the requirement or the testers are testing something which is out of scope. So if it's valid, then it gets assigned to the development team, and the status of the defect gets changed to assigned. And in case if it's not valid, the business analyst rejects the defect, stating it's an invalid and also the reason for rejection, and the status of the defect goes to rejected. And then once it is assigned to the development team, the team will check the validity of the defect first. If it's not valid, maybe it's test data error or environment, then it gets rejected as invalid with the reasons specified by the development team. But in case it's valid, it goes further investigations are done by the development team. So the first check is to check whether if there's any duplicate defect already out there. So this is more common when if you're doing testing of an application for a global rollout. So there will be multiple countries involved or multiple stakeholders testing the same thing. What would happen in that scenario is there would be multiple testing teams testing the same functionality, and there are a lot of cases where there might be duplicate defects. So they'll check whether it's duplicate or not. If it's duplicate, they will tag it to the original defect or the defect which was raised first, and the status of this particular defect will be a duplicate. And then let's say it's not a duplicate, they will check whether they're able to fix it. So there are several reasons where the development team might not be able to fix a defect. One of them would be the time constraint. Let's say that the defect is raised 3 days until the end of the testing cycle, or 2 days, or on the last day. So this doesn't give the development team enough time to fix it. Or if a defect is too complex to fix, maybe it requires architectural changes. So there are a variety of reasons where they won't be able to fix it in that particular release. Then those type of defects would be deferred to the next release, and the status of that particular defect would be deferred. And then let's say they're able to fix it. If they're able to fix it, uh, then they would resolve the fix, and then they will deploy the fix. So once this deployed, the fix is deployed, the status will change to fixed, indicating the testing team to retest the defect. So that defect will be retested if the defect is fixed or not. If it's not fixed, it will be reassigned back to the development team with stating the same thing, the providing the retest results, the screenshots, etc., etc. Let's say if it is fixed, then the defect will be closed and the status of the defect will be closed. And also there are the other defects, the rejected ones and the duplicate ones are also will be moved to closed eventually. And then this brings us to the end of the defect lifecycle. Again, a very key question. So you can use this and also try to use an example when you explain this to the interviewer. Question number 7. What is the difference between priority and severity? Again, a very commonly asked question, and it's a tricky one. Most of the people get it wrong. And this is a key one for a business analyst because business analysts are involved in the prioritization of a defect. So let's look at it. Priority. Priority basically defines the order in which the defect should be fixed, and it's based on the business value. So let's say there are 10 defects. The priority defines how the development team should be fixing them, and the priority is based on the business value again. So one of the key activities and responsibilities of a business analyst is during the defect management, defect triage, to come up with this priority, so which will help the development team to fix the key defects for the release, so that the release goes as per planned and the lesser priority ones can be taken up in the next release. Severity. So severity is the degree of impact a defect has on the operation of the application. So this is the functionalities impact. So if a key functionality doesn't work, the severity is very high, and severity is based on the impact to functionality. So there are again priority and severity are two different things, but it may look the same, but they're two different things. Let me try to explain this with an example, and this is also again a commonly asked question. Can you tell me an example of high priority and low severity? So one of the things is the company logo is wrong. So there is no key impact to any functionality if a company logo is wrong. So the severity is very low, but the priority is high because if the company logo is not correct one, if the customers who are visiting the XYZ cinemas online booking website, they may think you know what, this is not the website, or this may be a scammy website, or there are a lot of thoughts, and this will prevent the usage of this particular online booking service by the customers. So from a business perspective, it is a very high priority and it needs to be fixed. So this is one of the key examples which can be given. The other one is high severity and low priority. So the footer links on the online booking platform does not work, let's say for an example. So they don't work, and from uh, a functionality perspective, URL not working is a high severity. But if the online booking URL, if it's not working, like if they click on book tickets, if that doesn't work, then again it becomes high priority. But if the footer links does not work, it becomes low priority. The reason being is most of the customers don't use it. Let's say 90% of the customers don't click on the footer links. So in case if it's not being fixed on this particular release due to the resource or time constraint, it can be fixed in the next release. So it becomes a low priority. So this is the difference, and you can use examples from your own past projects, so that will add more value while answering this particular question. Moving on to question number 8. What is RTM, or requirement traceability matrix? We covered this in a couple of our videos earlier, but I'm going to cover it today just from a testing perspective. So as you know, it's a matrix used to trace requirements backward and forward. From a testing perspective, what is required here is you have to ensure that all the business requirements are covered as part of testing, which is the mapping of the requirements to the test cases. So if we look at an example, the business requirement would be mapped to the stakeholder requirements, and stakeholder requirement would be mapped to the functional and non-functional requirement, and then the functional requirements which would be mapped to the test scenarios, and test scenarios will be mapped to the test cases. So this is the key part. And when as a business analyst, as we spoke about in the first question, that is one of the key responsibilities of a BA is to review the test cases and ensure that it all covers all the requirements. So you can use the requirement traceability matrix to do that. So you can map all the test scenarios and test cases and ensure that everything is covered as part of the test cycle, both from an SIT and also can be used from a UAT perspective. This brings us to question number 9, the last question. What are the tools used in testing? So this particular question is asked used to just test your exposure to testing related activities and also the artifacts. You can just pick and choose from the table here to answer this particular question. So the test strategy, test plan, documentation is done by MS Word. We didn't cover this as part of the video. This is another thing, it might require a video on its own. But test plan, test strategy is basically a document which provides the approach which would be used for testing, the testings which are in scope, the schedule, when will the testing will happen, in scope, out scope, and also the roles and responsibilities and reporting. But it's a video on its own, so that's the reason I didn't cover it here. But it's all done using MS Word. And then the test cases documentation, the test case which we discussed. So the documentation is done using QC or ALM. So these are the tools used. If there's no tool used, then it will be just MS Office, which is the Excel, and then the Google Sheets if the company doesn't use Office and they just wanted to use uh, the Google Suite, then Google Sheets is used. And then for execution, QC or ALM is used. So in the tool itself, once the test cases are done, instead of updating it on an Excel spreadsheet, the testers can update it directly in the tool itself, and reporting is very quick. You can just export the whole results for you used on the test execution update done to QC or ALM. So that's one key tool. And then the defect logging. So we discussed the defect lifecycle, and there are a lot of tools in the market for defect management and logging defects. So the common used ones are Jira in case of Agile. If it's waterfall, still the QC ALM is used, and we have Bugzilla and ClearQuest. So these are some common use tools which have come up in the recent past. And then for screenshots for defects, so I've stated that the screenshots are very key for defect management. And for screenshots, we have some sniping tools like Snagit, light shot, screen taker. If nothing works, you can just take a screenshot and edit it using MS Paint. So this helps um, to provide more details in the defect for the business analyst or also the development team for quicker resolution. And in case if there's database testing involved, then Toad or SQL is commonly used. So these are some commonly used tools. You can just pick and choose based on your experience while answering this particular question. Wow, that's a long video. I didn't expect it when I started filming, but thanks so much for sticking around to this point. Did you enjoy this video? If so, I would request you to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and also download the Business Analyst Interview Guide. So there's a link in the description. You can click on it and download it. It will have over 50 plus questions, again, commonly asked questions, which will help you to smash your next business analyst interview. So please go ahead and download it and use it as a prep material for your next business analyst interview. And also, I request you again to subscribe to our channel. We post videos regularly on business analyst techniques, tools, tutorials, and also interview prep. So until I speak to you in the next video, thank you so much for listening to this particular video. See you around and bye-bye.